Shoulder pain is a pretty big issue for a lot of people out there, especially you avid gym goers. At some point, when you start to get really strong and you begin to push yourself regularly, eventually you're going to end up dealing with some shoulder pain. In this video, I'm going to go over the common cause of shoulder pain, how to avoid getting the shoulder pain to begin with. But if you're already dealing with it, I got to show you ways how to fix it as well. So that's what this video is all about. Stay tuned. One of the leading causes of shoulder pain is overhead motions with kyphotic posture. Kyphotic posture is the opposite of a neutral spine. So if a neutral spine is just standing here with a relatively straight spine, chest is up, shoulders are down and back, kyphotic posture would be hunched over in this position. And the reason why this hurts so many people's shoulders as we get into overhead motions, whether that be a dumbbell press or a barbell press, or any piece of machinery where you're pressing overhead, is pretty simple. You see, in the scapula, we have a ball joint here where the shoulder goes into the scapula. And in that ball joint, we have a rotator cuff, which is the series of muscles that rotate the arm this way and this way. Now, the problem with kyphotic posture, or a hunch position when pressing, is this. At some point when the spine is rounded down and forward and you try to press overhead, we will have some impingement here. Impingement is when there's bone on bone in this position. You see how the bone's on bone here? Now, you're gonna have tendons and ligaments that are attached to the arm bone here. And when those tendons and ligaments constantly rub on this bone in this position, it's going to eventually erode the ligaments and tendons and cause swelling and pain and discomfort. How we avoid that is we push the shoulders down and back and push the chest up in this position so we create some space here. Now there's no rubbing in this overhead position. Essentially what I mean is if I have a rounded posture down and forward and I start to do overhead presses, at some point I impinge the rotators in the back of my shoulders in this position. Now, in order to fix that, what I would need to do is put my chest up as high as I can and put my shoulders down and back as much as I can. When I'm in this neutral spine position and I start to press overhead, now I'm free and clear of rubbing any of those tendons and ligaments that connect the arm bone into the scapula. That also goes for flying motions as well. If I'm doing a shoulder fly in this hunched position, when I get close to the top, I'm gonna start rubbing on those tendons and ligaments. So again, what fixes that is pulling the chest up and the shoulders down and back to have a neutral spine, so when you're doing your flies, you're not risking rubbing any of those tendons and ligaments onto the bone of the scapula. The second biggest cause of injury is actually using the rotators for a pushing motion. And it doesn't necessarily matter if that's on the bench press or any piece of machinery in the gym where you're pushing. You do not want to involve the rotators on that push. And let me show you what that looks like. If I'm doing a bench press or pressing on any piece of machinery and I get to this point where the weight's no longer moving and instead I squirm a little bit left and right in order to get that up, that's going to incorporate the rotators in a big heavy press where you should be using your chest, your triceps, and your anterior delts, otherwise known as your front shoulders. Another thing too is, even if your body doesn't squirm, if you get to this point and then your elbows come in and out as you're pressing, that's also going to use the rotators. You need to learn to fail with good form. So if you're on a piece of machinery and you can no longer get the weight up, try it for a good solid 4 seconds, and if it's not moving, just let the weight down and get out of the machine, or let the bar down, or have your spotter pull it up off of you. But you are under no circumstances to get to this point where you're close to muscular failure and pull the elbows in and out or rotate the spine up and down in order to get that weight up. It's easy to get into ego lifting at the gym and our brains want to lift heavy, but a lot of the times when we're squirming or rotating the elbows in order to get the weight up, the weight moves up, but the stimulus for growth is actually not being able to get the weight up. So we shouldn't have in our minds that the weight needs to come up at all costs, because the cost is our long-term shoulder health. So keep that in mind. One of the best exercises you can do to start to heal the rotator by getting some blood in there and by strengthening it is this is a rotation of the shoulders. So with your knee up on a bench in this position, you would use the bench in the back to pull your shoulders this way. The weight would come down in this position as far as you can, and then up 180 degrees from that position. You would start out with a weight that you can barely do 12 of, and you would do 4 sets of 12 on each side. Even if only one of your shoulders is hurt, make sure you do both sides so that you don't increase the strength on one rotator and not the other, because then the other one will get injured in the future. As you get to the point where whatever weight you're holding can do 12 reps, then you would increase the weight to where 4 sets of 12 is barely doable in this position. This is going to force a rotation, and it's going to get some blood in and around there. Modern recovery practitioners will tell you that the best thing to do is active recovery. And active recovery involves a stimulus of the muscle that's sore or hurt, because then the metabolic waste products of the injury can actually get out as fresh blood is moving into the joint here. The last thing you'd ever want to do is put your arm in a sling and let all the muscles atrophy, because that's going to increase your risk for injury in the future, because now all the muscles are going to be smaller. Another excellent exercise to use to help recover your rotators is this 3-position band work. So with a relatively light band, you would pull 1 to your navel, 1 to your chest, 1 to your forehead, over and over again until you hit 30 reps. This is gonna pull your shoulders to the back of the socket, allowing some fresh blood to get in there, again, to start to heal the rotator. You wanna use a band that lets you get to 30 total reps, but it should still be a little bit of a struggle. So we covered external rotation, now we gotta cover internal rotation. So with the band around a fixed object like this, you would begin to pull from this position inward here. By keeping the elbow fixed in this position and rotating inward, you're working the back part of your rotator, not only to strengthen it, but to also, again, get rid of some of the negative anabolic byproducts of that injury and some fresh blood into that position. This would be something you would do for 12 reps on each side. Make sure you rotate sides for about 4 sets each. And this is going to correspond with the other 2 exercises that I showed you earlier. Something else that's hardly ever discussed is sleeping position. And over the years, I found out that my shoulder injuries were due to this, and that's me sleeping with my arms overhead. Anytime you're in this overhead position, you're going to cut off circulation to the ball joints inside the shoulders. And over time, cutting off circulation is going to damage and kill tissue in the shoulders. If you wake up with numb fingers regularly, what you need to do is learn how to sleep in this position with your palms on your side. When sleeping in this position, you're going to get proper circulation into the shoulders, and it's going to help recover. It doesn't matter if you're doing all these techniques that I showed you. If you end up going to bed at night and sleeping like this, or on your side with arms overhead like this, eventually you're going to have that reoccurring injury because you're never going to recover. If you spend a lot of time sleeping in this overhead position and you realize you're waking up with numb fingers, that's an indication that you're not getting fresh blood into the shoulders. So as hard as it is, and it was very hard for me, I had to learn to sleep with my hands at my side. Hey guys, that about covers it. Let me just give you a summary real quick. First and foremost, you have to learn to not press with kyphotic posture or a hunch in your back. You have to learn how to get your chest up and your shoulders down and back. When doing that, in any pressing motions, you have to also combine that with not twisting the elbows as you're pressing or squirming the body as you're pressing. Those are the 2 main culprits for shoulder pain, which is likely going to come down to a rotator injury or a rotator aggravation. If you start doing some of the exercises I showed you on a daily basis, and on top of that, you learn not to sleep with your arms overhead, you will start to recover, but nothing works unless you do. So make sure you dedicate yourself to the exercises I showed you and dedicate yourself to learn how to sleep in this position. If you like the video, please like the video. I got a bunch more videos on the channel. I'm really working hard to get this thing off the ground. So please subscribe and check out my other playlists. And in the comments below this video, let me know what you guys want to see in the future. I'm all ears, and I really want to start putting content out there that you guys want to see. So let me know what that is, and I'll see you guys next time.